When we think of Auschwitz, we always see the same thing. The gate, the wire, the ramp, rows of barracks. But the camp did not end where the fence ended. Around it, the Germans created a space absent from most photographs. 40 square kilometers, village, fields, homes, schools, turned deliberately, methodically, into an instrument of crime. The people vanished from it. The fields were swallowed by the camp. They called it Interessengebiet, the Zone of Interest. This is the story of a place that disappeared and of the people erased from it. The Zone of Interest was not just the camp surroundings. It was land deliberately emptied of Polish civilians, guarded day and night by the SS. 40 square kilometers, not a narrow strip by the gate. A vast world, villages, roads, ponds, farms. And it did not serve a single purpose. A zone of isolation, of forced labor, of the SS economy. A zone of terror against civilians, and a zone that helped hide the crime. Also, the outside world would not see the truth. In one place was gathered everything that Auschwitz was, except the wire itself. A whole inhabited world, turned into a closed zone of the camp. This is what the famous photographs do not show. To understand Auschwitz, you have to look beyond the wire. The choice of Auschwitz was no accident. After the invasion of Poland in 1939, this land was annexed directly into the Reich. It was to be Germanized forever. In the town stood former Polish barracks, 22 brick buildings. They became the foundation of the first camp, Auschwitz I. And above all, Auschwitz was a railway hub. Silesia, Krakow, Bohemia, Austria, all of occupied Europe converged here. For the machinery of deportation, this was no mere convenient campsite. It was a place from which they could reach people across the entire continent. Annexed land, old barracks, a railway junction. Everything the machinery of murder needed was already here, and room to grow into a whole complex. The Germans did not build this zone on empty land. There were villages, farms, families, schools, churches, orchards, roads, ponds. There was ordinary life, the kind that had gone on for generations. And then came the decision. From late 1940, the expulsions began. In the spring of 1941, mass expulsions from 8 villages at once. Zezhinka, Babica, Brashkovica, Harmansa, Puevi, Riesko, Bor, Buddy. The Jews living in Auschwitz were driven out as well. People were thrown from their homes, their land, and the belongings of a lifetime taken. Some were given minutes to pack, others, nothing. They left behind graves of loved ones, orchards, the memory of generations. Most homes were demolished. The rest the SS took over. This was not an administrative operation. It was an act of violence. Where there had been ordinary life, a landscape of violence began to rise. 8 villages, thousands of people, erased in a matter of weeks. Their homes became building material for the camp. Above all, the zone was meant to isolate, to cut the camp off from the world. The fewer civilians around, the fewer witnesses. The harder to carry out the truth about the transports and the executions. The isolation had several layers. Physical, posts, patrols, a ban on entry. Informational, silence around the crime. And psychological. Fear was a wall as tight as the wire. For a prisoner, stepping beyond the wire did not mean freedom. It meant only entering another ring of control. Even escaping, you had to cross this whole landscape, patrols, roads, empty villages. That is why the SS wanted the inhabitants gone. Because their help, their homes, their knowledge of the land were a fugitive's only chance. So the SS emptied the land and sealed the camp inside silence. No witnesses, no help, no way out. The whole landscape became part of the prison. In this zone, the prisoners worked, beyond the main fence but still inside Auschwitz. Each day began and ended with roll call, counting the living and the dead. They left under escort at dawn. They returned after dark, if they returned. They built the camp, demolished the homes of the expelled, dug ditches, drained land, laid roads. They worked the fields that had so recently belonged to local families. They did it hungry, beaten, in rags that protected them from nothing. In winter, in the same striped uniforms, in the snow, without shoes to keep them warm. Wounds had no way to heal. Filth, frost, and exhaustion did the rest. No tools, no rest, no right to stop. The SS men and the capos beat them for moving too slowly, for falling, for nothing. The weakest were finished off, or left until they stopped moving. A person worn out by work became useless, and the useless were not saved. Only the output mattered. A human being was material to be used up. Hunger, disease, and exhaustion killed day after day. This was not employment. It was destruction through labor. In the autumn of 1941, about 10,000 Soviet prisoners of war were brought to build Birkenau. By spring, only a handful survived. Building the camp was itself a slow death. Most of their names no one wrote down. Only numbers remained. They drained marshes and dug ditches with bare, frozen hands. Every day the same. Roll call, the march, the labor, the dead carried back. There was never enough food, never enough warmth, never enough time. A prisoner was not paid, could not leave, could not refuse. Work itself became a way of killing. The zone was not meant to stay empty. It was meant to turn a profit. In November 1940, Heinrich Himmler ordered a vast SS farm established here. That is why the villages were expelled, to seize their fields, ponds, and holdings. Crops, gardening, cattle, poultry, rabbits, fish ponds, experimental stations. Harvests and livestock went to the SS tables and to sale. From this land, the SS wanted to squeeze money by the hands of people it was condemning to death. Because this is the other face of Auschwitz. Not only gas chambers and crematoria, also account books. The hunger and suffering of some were a line in the other's ledger. This entire fortune was built from the labor of slaves and from their dying. Behind every name on the map lies a specific fate. Zezinka, a Polish village. After the decision to build Auschwitz II, its people were expelled, the houses pulled down. From their rubble the camp was built. So Birkenau arose, the largest part of the complex, the main site of extermination. In 1944, over 90,000 people were held here. This is where the gas chambers and crematoria stood. Behind the name Birkenau stands not only a camp, it stands a destroyed village and an exiled community. Riesco, gardens, crops, experimental plants. From 1943, a women's subcamp. Harmensha, 2 kilometers from Birkenau. Poultry and rabbit breeding, fish ponds. What had been farming became forced labor and exhaustion. Babitsa, here in 1943, a former school, a place where children were taught, was turned into a prison. Windows were bricked up, cells and a sick bay set up. Buddy, an SS farm and a subcamp, remembered for cruel violence against women prisoners. Puevi, expulsion, seizure of land, forced labor, the same mechanism again and again. The zone lets us grasp what Auschwitz truly was. Not one camp, a system. Auschwitz I, the parent camp, the administrative center. Birkenau, the largest part and the main site of extermination. Monowitz, a labor camp at the IG Farben Works. The village of Monowitz was expelled, its buildings destroyed. And over 40 subcamps by factories, farms, mines. One arose at the coal mine in Jawiszowice. Their prisoners worked underground in utterly exhausting conditions at the edge of life. This is already beyond the zone of interest itself. Proof that Auschwitz, as a system of forced labor, was even larger than its core. The railway, the SS economy, the zone of interest. This was the spatial skeleton of the whole machine. The zone of interest was a landscape of violence. And the violence did not end at the fence. It was in the expelled villages and empty homes, in the barracks and the wire, in the labor squads and the patrols, in the farms, workshops, and experiments, in Birkenau, on the ramp, in the gas chambers, in the crematoria. This landscape had layers: civilian, occupation, camp, economic, extermination. And a final one, the layer of memory. Today, of many of these villages, no trace remains, only silence and landscape. Because without the zone of interest, the true scale of Auschwitz cannot be grasped. So, looking today at the area around Auschwitz, we should see more than barracks and ruins. We should see the villages whose people were driven out, the fields where prisoners worked, the roads down which the squads were marched, the ponds beside which people died of exhaustion. Each of these places is someone's home, someone's labor, someone's death. The zone of interest reminds us that the crime did not happen only behind the wall. It spilled across the whole space around the camp. And only when we see this do we see the full picture of this history. This was a space of violence. Let us remember its victims and those who were driven from here.